Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All Americans deserve to be safe. People who live in the District of Columbia deserve to be safe. When American citizens come from all around the country to see their government in action, and by the way, now that the House is open, where all people can come and see their government in action again, more people are participating in that process, but they deserve to be safe when they come here too. And Andrew Clyde recognized that. As you saw crime getting more and more out of control, and shockingly, the DC Council passed an ordinance that zeroed out, got rid of mandatory minimum sentences for violent offenders, people who commit violent crimes. If somebody carjacks you at gunpoint, used to be over 14 years they served minimum, brought it down to 0, and for many other violent crimes too. And Andrew, as the Speaker said, heard from someone here in DC who said, can we do something about it? Congress has a constitutional duty to be able to govern DC, to pass legislation, to solve problems. And here was a real serious problem that needed to be solved. When House Republicans ran to get the majority, one of the things we said we would do is fight for those people who are being left behind, fight for those hardworking families who government had just forgotten about. We said we would address crime in communities. In just a few short weeks, we now have a bill going to the President's desk that will be signed, that will save lives here in the District of Columbia. We wasted no time to start following through on the commitment we made to America to address serious problems. You've seen it in the last few weeks. We passed another important bill today that'll go to the President's desk and probably be signed to declassify information on the origins of COVID so Americans can find out how this really started. A disease that affected every American all across the country and people all around the world. And you're going to continue to see us bring legislation week after week to fight for those families who had been left behind for way too long. But today we're talking about a bill that's going to make communities safer. And as the Speaker said, this doesn't just involve DC. We saw just a few days ago, the people of Chicago said, we're going to take our city back, and they fired their mayor. This is happening all across the country. People are fed up with crime that's out of control, and they want to do something about it, but we're going to do something about it as well. And this bill that Andrew Clyde brought forward, that all of my colleagues behind me proudly voted for, even with the President saying he was opposed to it, that's not why we do this. Whether or not the Senate's going to take it up, whether or not the President is going to sign it, is not the driving factor. The real issue is it the right thing to do for America? And if it is, we're going to do it, and then we're going to encourage the Senate to pass it. We're going to encourage President Biden to sign it. But at the end of the day, this is about getting this country back on track. And the DC police chief probably said it best just a few days ago when he talked about how dire this is. Because we stand with the blue. We've got the Fraternal Order of Police here represented today. We support the men and women in law enforcement who keep our communities safe. But there's nothing more demoralizing to police officers who are risking their lives than when they see that they arrest somebody, a hardened criminal who committed a crime, created another victim. And even when they're found guilty, they get to walk scot-free and go commit more crimes. This is really happening. The police chief pointed it out. He said for every single person who's murdered, 11 other victims were created prior to that. So not only is this bill important to keeping our streets safe, there will be fewer victims in the District of Columbia when this is signed into law. There will be fewer homicide victims. There will be more people alive in the DC the next few months and years, because somebody who commits a homicide, if there's 11 other victims, if you put them in jail the first time they're caught, there's not those 10 other victims and the 11th person that's actually a homicide victim who's killed. This bill will save lives, this bill will make streets safer, and this bill will send a message for other people around the country in state houses and in cities throughout the country to take action just like we are to make communities safer. And the man who helps get the votes to pass these bills is our whip, the hockey player, Mr. Tom Emmer.